So, yeah, there was a, a man-made famine that was perpetrated on my ancestors um, in the early 1930s, and I think the next parts are going to be a bit hard for me to talk about, but it's got to be told. Um, I think, uh, besides the fact that it'll explain where are my family members, my cousins and my uncles, or possible those possible relatives. Well, not only was there a famine, uh, there was a lot of threats. There were a lot of threats being brought against certain people, um, mainly, the intelligentsia, uh, other, intellectual types, and as I had mentioned, my great grandfather he was one of those types. He was a university professor, and it just so happened that my great grandfather was an outspoken man, and he was an anti-communist. So, as you can imagine, he wasn't too popular, with leadership. And so, what he did was, and this is from my grandma's recollection, is that he kept, a suitcase under his bed, with all his belongings, all the things that he would be able to take with him, in case his life was possibly in danger, or there was an emergency and he had to just get out of there. And that's what happened with I didn't really tell you much about my great grandmother from that side, because she died early on, and my grandma was very young. I think my grandma was like 12 when her mother died, and she doesn't have this she doesn't really have a record of her, who she was, what she did, or anything. So I can't share that with you. Add to the fact that there are no records that exist for my family does not have any records. I can't go to a church over there and try to find my heritage. I mean, I can't really find who was who in my family tree, because if you know anything about the time of that communist period, how the communists had shut down churches, burnt churches, just unspeakable things that they did, to the holy places. And not the least of things, was to burn the all the records, of the people. And so that's very unfortunate because, I really had an interest in being able to look up my family tree and everything, but it's just not something that I can do. It's impossible. So that's why, things are sort of maybe not in very good order, what I'm trying to tell you, because it's most of it is, word of mouth, and I don't have much written down. So yeah, so my great-grandfather, he was always prepared for the worst to come. It was, him and my grandmother, they lived together, just the two of them. And my grandma, though, she I think she had, I believe it was one cousin, or it might have been more, but I lose track. But she had one cousin, and well, her cousin ended up being killed. She said he had been executed with a shot to the head, I think. So, he never had a chance to have a family of his own, so that's, one ancestor that was destroyed. And there might have been others. I think there might have been, and their fates are a mystery, because my grandma left Ukraine, I think it was, I believe, it was the early 40s, I think. And whoever else was in the family was left behind in Ukraine, and we never really heard back from any of them. Everybody agrees that whoever was left behind was either murdered or sent to the gulags in Siberia. And that in itself would have been a death sentence. And communications out of there, that's like, there's absolutely none. And 60 odd years later, there hasn't been any family that has tried to find us or anything. It's just, they're just eliminated. That's just covering my grandma's side, my mom's side. I still have 3 more to go. I think the next person I'm going to cover is my grandfather on that side. I have a little bit I could say about his life and everything.